We all know about the Egyptian pyramids. They're probably the most mysterious pyramidal buildings on Earth. But there are pyramids underwater too. And if scientists are still arguing about the Egyptian pyramids, the truth about the underwater ones seems to be revealed. This is Infinity, and in this episode you'll learn the real purpose of underwater pyramids and see the coolest underwater finds and artifacts. Let's go! Yonaguni Monument. In the 1980s, Japanese diver Kiichiro Arataki was diving off the coast of Yonaguni Island. He was looking for hammerhead sharks, but found something much bigger. Underwater, he found a huge structure. It looked like a jumble of flat terraces and bizarre stone sculptures. The highest point was almost 5 meters from the surface of the water. Until this moment, the mystical place had never been seen by man. Now it's one of the world's most fascinating mysteries. At first glance, Yonaguni Monument seems to be the work of man. There are steps, columns, and roads. There's speculation that it's the ruins of an ancient stadium. The time of origin of the structure is still the subject of heated debate. But underwater geologist Masaki Kimura, who led the expedition divers, believes that the building was erected from 2,000 to 5,000 years ago. Just at this time, the land was still above sea level before going underwater after a powerful earthquake. The Yonaguni Monument has been dubbed Japan's Atlantis. Many consider this place to be the ruins of an ancient culture. San Jose, the ship sank in 1708. The value of its cargo was estimated at $50 million, but according to other reports, it could be as much as $17 billion. Historians knew that the ship sank near Cartagena, Colombia, but the exact location of the wreck remained unknown for a long time. San Jose was carrying about 700 tons of merchandise, including gold and silver bars, which were being transported to Spain. The galleon sank when it struck the reefs. The search for San Jose was renewed when another Spanish galleon was found off the Caribbean coast of Panama. From the 16th to 18th centuries, Panama served as a transshipment point for transporting gold and silver from South America to Spain. In 2015, Colombian authorities said they discovered the ship but would not disclose its exact location. A real battle ensued for the right to appropriate the ship. Colombia asserted that since the ship sank off its coast and was found by its citizens, all the valuables must belong to them. However, Spain categorically disagreed, since all the documents said that the ship belonged to the Spanish kingdom, and therefore the cargo on the ship belonged to it as well. The litigation has not yet been resolved, and the Spanish galleon, San Jose, still rests on the seabed. In 2012, a team funded by billionaire Jeff Bezos used deep-sea sonar to find the remains of the Saturn V rocket that launched the Apollo 11 spacecraft, which delivered the first humans to the moon at a depth of more than 4 kilometers. A year later, a special bathyscaphe surveyed the area of the bottom. Despite the fact that the primary stage fell into the ocean at an enormous speed, and its parts spent 4 decades in saltwater, some large elements were perfectly preserved due to the high strength of the materials. Researchers not only took many pictures but also raised 2 engines to the surface. The process of lifting the Saturn V engines to the surface proved to be very difficult. A special 3-dimensional map of the ocean floor was created to search for all components, and the remains were retrieved using remotely operated submersibles. The pilot had to take care not to destroy water and any time-damaged elements, and they had to dig many pieces out of the silt. Nevertheless, the operation was successful, and the engines are now on display in a museum. A few years ago, researchers managed to find the remains of a ship that sank about 2,400 years ago on the bottom of the Black Sea. The ship was accidentally discovered by 3 scientists who, on the last day of the expedition, submerged to the bottom of the sea in a submersible. A team of American and Bulgarian experts reported that the ship lies at a depth of about 100 meters, a few kilometers off the Bulgarian coast. The masts, the rudder, and even the rowers' benches were preserved. The find is considered to be the oldest intact ship. In those days, ancient Greece was experiencing a flourishing economy and culture. Greeks stored wine, olive oil, fish, and other products in amphorae. Researchers saw several dozen of these vessels at the bottom. Scientists also reported that the appearance of the discovered ship coincides with the drawings of ancient Greek pottery. Unidentified underwater objects may not be as interesting as unidentified flying objects, but it's still not entirely clear where they come from. Some try to put forward theories of extraterrestrial origin, relying on vague outlines moving underwater. And someone claims that they're genuine historical artifacts. For example, the Pantelleria Vecchia bank monolith, found at the bottom of the Strait of Sicily. It resembles one of the huge stones of Stonehenge. Although the stone itself is 40,000 years old, it's believed that it was placed there about 10,000 years ago when the Strait of Sicily was above water. Atlit Yam is another underwater attraction. The ruins of the village are off the coast of Israel and are at least 8,300 years old. Both findings confirm that ancient people lived in regions that were flooded. The city of Thonis, or as the Greeks call it, Heraklion, once existed to the north of the Egyptian coast. For a long time, it was considered fictitious, as it was mentioned only in the works of Greek authors. But in 2012, he was discovered at a depth of 50 meters in the Gulf of Abu Qir. Divers are still exploring the seabed, making more and more discoveries. They already found statues of Isis and other Egyptian gods, the ruins of temples, and the remains of granite columns from the royal palaces with Egyptian hieroglyphs and Greek letters. They've survived almost untouched. According to scientists, hundreds more artifacts are hidden at a depth which can take up to 200 years to find. The mystery of the city's demise remains unknown. What was the reason for it being at the bottom of the sea? Some argue that the earthquake was to blame, while others speak of a devastating tsunami. The fate of Heraklion reminds us of Atlantis, which may exist in reality and is waiting for its time. However, some historians refute this version. After all, sailors have seen a lot in their lifetime and can embellish stories. That's how various legends appear. Baltic Anomaly. This story begins in 2011. The Swedish team Ocean X, which specializes in the search for sunken treasures, discovered a strange object at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. It was followed by two grooves that resembled a runway. With the help of geolocation method, the Swedes recreated an image of the object, which was buried at a depth of 87 meters. It had unusual features for a natural formation. From this, it was concluded that it could be a man-made object. The object had a round shape with a diameter of 18 meters. The find resembled the famous spaceship Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. The event attracted the attention of the scientific community. The discoverers themselves put forward many versions. According to them, it could just be a geological object, or maybe even a secret military project developed against the army and submarines, or even an alien ship. Notre Dame de la Delivrance. Notre Dame de la Delivrance, the galleon, which sank in 1755 during a storm, broke all records for the value of cargo it carried. It was estimated at about 3.2 billion euros. After the ship was found off the coast of Florida, the American company Subsea Research, which main specialty is the search for sunken ships around the world, asked the local authorities for permission to lift the wreck. But information about the find drew the attention of the Spanish authorities because the galleon, although it was flown under the French flag and crewed by French sailors, was chartered by Spain to transport valuables from their own colonies in Peru, Mexico, and Colombia. This is where the serious controversy over who owned such a valuable cargo began. After a lengthy trial, the U.S. State Department acknowledged the rights to the ship to the Spaniards. The company and the state of Florida, however, disagreed, and the ship is still on the seabed. That's all, guys. Which underwater find surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.